In the blood, I've been washed in the blood of the Lamb. I've been washed.
Sure, I'll take it.
In the blood, I've been washed in the blood of the Lamb.
In the early 20th century, during the years leading up to World War I, Woodlot Stumps was a successful lumber baron who cut down white pine. The instructions were don't leave one tree standing because the competition might come in and take it. Woodlot had cutting rights. It was his. It was all those trees were Woodlot's trees. That was his attitude. Most of the cutting was done in winter because it was easier to transport the logs out of the forest on sleighs pulled by horses. This is in the days before they had lumber trucks and everything. The religious experience of Woodlot was after he'd been heavy drinking for several days. He went out to take a leak in the snow. He was so drunk he went barefoot and didn't even put a coat on even though it was -20. And while he was relieving himself, he heard a strange sort of rumbling noise. And he looked at the stumps sticking up above the snow, the stumps of the trees that had been cut by his crew. Blood began oozing from the stumps. He rubbed his eyes, and the blood flowed from hundreds of tree stumps. Snow turned red with the blood, and it flowed up to Woodlot, and it covered his legs. He stood knee-deep in the snow with blood flowing around him. Woodlot was so shocked he ran back into the shack and threw himself full length on the rough wooden planks, and he vowed to build a wood church. He built a church and called it the Church of the Living Monument, about 2 kilometers from Roaring Water, and then he built a stone church in the town, which his son, Stonehenge, took over because Woodlot began to have psychological problems and mental deterioration. He spent most of his time locked away in his office, seated at a wood desk with rows of books, stacks of books all around him. The only time he went out was to indulge his addiction in hunting. He was an avid hunter. He kept the freezers well stocked with moose meat, deer meat, elk. He even shot quite a few bears and ducks and geese. Then one night, he was dead. It was taboo to talk about. Woodlot Stumps had taken the knife which he used to skin animals, and he had disemboweled himself. She had found him in a pool of blood. It was not a pretty sight. That's the end of this episode, how the religious experience of Woodlot Stumps in the forest that caused him to sell his lumber industries and to found the Church of the Living Monument, as well as the taboo nature of Woodlot's death.